10th, and I am reading Greene's The Comedians. This is a story about, largely about Haiti. It describes their arrival, the three comedians, Mr. Smith, who was a presidential candidate, Mr. Jones, who called himself Major Jones, and Mr. Brown, who tells the story. We are now here already in the second part, chapter 3, Roman 1, and I'm just starting here. Next day, I saw the Smiths off at the airport. There was no sign of Petit Pierre, and yet surely the departure of a presidential candidate rated one paragraph in his column, even though he would not have had to omit the final macabre scene which took place outside the post office. Mr. Smith asked me to stop the car in the centre of the square, and I thought he intended to take a photograph. Instead, he got out, carrying his wife's handbag, and the beggars approached from all directions. There was a low bubble of half-articulated phrases, and I saw a policeman run down the steps of the post office. Mr. Smith opened the handbag and began to scatter notes, goods and dollars, indiscriminately. "For God's sake," I said. One or two of the beggars gave high, unnerving screams. I saw Hammett standing amazed at the door of his shop. The red light of evening turned the pools and mud the colour of laterite. The last money was scattered, and the police began to close in on their prey. Men with two legs kicked down men with one. Men with two arms grasped those who were armless by their torsos and threw them to the ground. As I hustled Mr. Smith back into my car, I saw Jones. He sat in a car behind his tonton driver, and he looked bewildered, worried, for once in his life lost. Mr. Smith said, "Well, my dear, I guess they won't squander that any worse than I would have done." I saw the Smiths on to their plane, dined alone, and then drove to the Villa Creole. I was curious to see Jones. The chauffeur was slumped at the bottom of the stairs. He watched me with suspicion, but he let me pass. A voice from the landing above cried angrily, "La volonté du diable!" and a Negro who flashed a gold ring under the light went by me. Jones greeted me as though I were an old school friend whom we had not seen for years, and with a hint of patronage, because our relative positions had changed since those days. "Come in, old man, I'm glad to see you. I expected you the other night. Forgive the confusion. Try that chair. You'll find it pretty snug." The chair was certainly warm. It still held the heat of the last angry occupant. 3 packs of cards were scattered over the table. The air was blue with cigar smoke, and an ashtray had toppled over, leaving some butts on the floor. "Who's your friend?" I asked. "Someone in the Treasury Department. A bad loser." "Gin rummy?" He shouldn't have raised the stakes halfway through, when he was well ahead. But you don't argue with someone in the Treasury, do you? In any case, at the end, the old ace of spades turned up, and it was over in a flash. I'm 2,000 to the good. But he paid me in goods, not dollars. "What's your poison?" "Have you a whiskey?" "I have next to everything, old man. You wouldn't fancy a dry martini?" I would have preferred a whiskey, but he seemed anxious to show off the riches of his store. "So, if it's very dry," I said. 10 to 1, old man. He unlocked the cupboard and drew out a leather travelling case, a half bottle of gin, a half bottle of vermouth, 4 metal beakers, a shaker. It was an elegant, expensive set, and he laid it reverently on the tumbled table as though he were an auctioneer showing a prized antique. I couldn't help commenting on it. "Asprey?" I asked. "As good as," he replied quickly and began to mix the cocktails. "It must feel a little odd finding itself here," I said, "so far from WI. It's used to much stranger places," he said. "I had it with me in Burma during the war. It's come out remarkably unscathed. I had it furbished up again." He turned away from me to find a lime, and I took a closer look at the case. Asprey's trademark was visible inside the lid. He came back with a lime and saw me looking. "I'm caught, old man. It is from Asprey's. I didn't want to seem pretentious, that's all. As a matter of fact, there's quite a history around that case. Tell me. Try the drink first and see if it's to your taste." "It's fine. I got that case as a result of a bet with some other chaps in the outfit. The brigadier had one like it, and I couldn't help envying him. I used to dream of a case like that on patrol, the shaker clinging with the ice. I had 2 young chaps out with me from London, never been much further than Bond Street before, well lined, both of them. They teased me about the brigadier's cocktail set. Once, when we got pretty near to the end of our waters, they challenged me to find a stream before night. If I did, I could have a cocktail case, like that next time anyone went home. I didn't know whether I've told you that I can smell water." "Was that the time you lost the whole platoon?" I asked. He looked up at me over his glass, and I'm sure he read my thoughts. "That was another occasion," he said, and changed the subject abruptly. "How are Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith?" "You saw what happened by the post office?" "Yes." "It was the last installment of American aid. They left this evening on the plane. They sent their regards to you." "I wish I'd seen more of them," Jones said. "There's something about him." He added surprisingly, "He reminded me of my father. Not physically, I mean, but, well, a sort of goodness." "Yes, I know what you mean. I don't remember my father. To tell you the truth, my memory's a bit dim too. Let's say the father we would have liked to have." "That's it, old man, exactly. Don't let your martini get warm. I always felt that Mr. Smith and I had a bit in common. Horses out of the same stable." I listened with astonishment. What could a saint possibly have in common with a rogue? Jones gently closed the cocktail case, and then, taking a cloth from the table, he began to stroke the leather as tenderly as Mrs. Smith had smoothed her husband's hat, and I thought, innocent perhaps. "I'm sorry," Mr. Jones said, "about that affair with the concasseur. I told him if he touched a friend of mine again, I was finished with a lot of them." "Be careful what you say, they're dangerous." "I have no fear of them. They need me too much, old man. Did you know young Philippot came to see me?" "Yes." "Just imagine what I could have done for him." "They realize that." "Have you a Bren for sale?" I've got myself, old man. That's better than a Bren. All the rebels need is a man who knows the way around. Think of it. On a clear day, you can see Port-au-Prince from the Dominican border. The Dominicans will never march. They are not needed. Give me 50 Haitians with a month's training and Papa Doc would be on a plane to Kingston. I wasn't in Burma for nothing. I've thought a lot about it. I've studied the map. Those raids near Haitian were a folly, the way they were done. I know exactly where I'd put my finger and where I'd strike. Why didn't you go with Philippot? I was tempted. Oh, I was tempted, all right. But I got a deal on here, which only happens once in a man's life. I mean, a fortune, if I can get away with it. Where to? Where to? Get away, where to? He laughed happily. Anywhere in the world, old man. Once before I nearly brought it off in Stanleyville, but I was dealing with a lot of savages and they got suspicious. And they aren't suspicious here? They are educated. You can always get round the educated. While he poured out 2 more martinis, I was wondering what form his swindle took. One thing at least was certain. He was living better than he had done in his prison cell. He had even put on a little weight. I asked him directly, "What are you up to, Jones?" "Laying the foundations of a fortune, old man. Why not come in with me? It's not a long-term project. Any moment now I'll have the bird by the tail. But I could do with a partner." "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. But you never came. There's $250,000 in it. Perhaps more, if we keep our nerve." "And a partner's job?" "To complete the deal, I have to do a spot of traveling. And I want a man I can rely on to watch things here while I'm away." "You don't trust Concasseur?" "I don't trust one of them. It's not a question of colour. But think of it, old man. $250,000 for your profit. I can't take any chances. I'd have to deduct a little of it for expenses. $10,000 would probably cover that. And then we'd divide the rest. The hotel is not doing too well, is it? And think what you could do with your share. There are islands in the Caribbean just watching for development. A beach, a hotel, an airstrip. You'd end up a millionaire, old man." I suppose it was my Jesuit education which reminded me of that moment when, from a high mountain above the desert, the devil displayed all the kingdoms of the world. I wondered whether the devil really had them to offer, or whether it was all a gigantic bluff. I looked around the room in the villa Creole for evidence of the thrones and powers. There was a record player, which Jones must have bought at Hamlet's. He would hardly have carried it all the way from America in the Madeira, for it was a cheap enough machine. Beside it, rather suitably, lay a disc of Edith Piaf, Je ne regrette rien, and there was little other signs of personal possession, little signs that he had been enabled to draw much of his wealth in advance for the goods which he had to deliver. What goods? "Well, old man, you haven't given me a very clear idea of what you want me to do. I can't let you into it very well, can I, until I know you are with me." "How can I tell whether I'm with you if I know nothing?" He looked at me across the scattered card. The lucky ace of spades lay face upwards. "It comes down to a matter of trust, doesn't it?" "It certainly does." "If only we'd been in the same outfit during the war, old man. Under those conditions you learn to trust." I said, "What division were you with?" And he replied without the slightest hesitation, 4 Corps. He even elaborated a little. 77th Brigade. He had the answers right. I checked them that night at the Trianon in a history which some clients had left behind off the Burma campaign. But even then it occurred to my suspicious mind that it was possible he possessed the same book and had drawn his data from it. But I was unjust to him. He really had been in info. "What hope have you got for your hotel? Very little. You couldn't find a purchaser if you tried. Any day now you will be dispossessed. They'll say you are not making proper use of your property and take it over. It might happen. What is it, old man? Woman trouble? I suppose my eyes gave me away. You're too old for fidelity, old man. Think of what you can get for $150,000. I noticed that the reward had increased. You can go further than the Caribbean. Do you know Bora? There's nothing there but an airstrip and a rest house, but with a little capital. And the girls, you've never seen such girls. The mothers had them off the American 20 years ago. Mère Catherine can show you better. Can't show you better. What will you do with your money? I would never have thought that James' flat brown eyes like copper coins had the capacity to dream, yet they moistened now with some kind of emotion. Old man, I've one particular spot in mind not far from here, a coral reef and white sand, real white sand, that you could build castles with, and behind are green slopes as smooth as real turf and God-made natural hazards, a perfect spot for a golf course. I'll build a golf house, bungalow suites, with showers. It will be more exclusive than any other golf club in the Caribbean. Do you know what I mean to call it? Sahib House. You don't suggest I'm to be your partner there? One can't have partners in a dream, old man. Conflicts would arise. I've got the place planned as I wanted to the last detail. I have the place planned as I wanted to the last detail. I wondered whether those were the blueprints Philippot had seen. I've gone on an awfully long way to get there, but it is in sight now. I can even see exactly where to put the 18th hole. You're keen on golf? I don't play myself. I somehow never had the time. It's the idea that appeals to me. I'm going to get a first-class social hostess. Someone good-looking, with background. I think at the beginning of having bunny girls, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized they would be out of place in a golf club of class. Were you planning all this in Stanleyville? I've been planning it for 20 years, old man, and now the moment's nearly here. Have another martini? No, I must be going. I'm going to have a long bar made of coral called the Desert Island Bar, with a barman trained at the Ritz. I'm going to have chairs made out of driftwood. Of course, we'll make them comfortable with cushions, parakeets on the curtains, and a big brass telescope in the window, focused on the 18th hole. We'll talk about it again. I've never talked about it to anyone before, anyone who could understand what I have in mind, that is. I used to talk to my boy in Stanleyville when I was thinking out the details, but the poor little bugger hasn't got a clue. Thanks for the martinis. I'm glad you liked the taste. When I looked back, he had taken off the cloth and was polishing it again. He called after me, "We'll have another talk soon. If only you'd agree in principle." This was the end of chapter 1 of Roman 1 of chapter 3.